discuss today the inyan of tvila for aluminums, trays, and so on. Those things that are disposables. Normally, whenever you have something that you'll use only on one-time use, you need tvila regardless if it's not a disposable. It's a common question that a person goes, let's say, to vacation and he buys himself something that he wants to use. He buys himself a knife, he buys himself a pot, and he only wants to use it once, twice, and then he throws it out. He just, it's worthwhile for him. He goes to Miami, he can't carry with him now a pot. So, right, they charge you arm and a leg if you want to take a suitcase with you on an airplane. So what do? You buy over there, you pay a couple of dollars, and you cook, and then you throw it out. So many people want to know. They need tvila. It's a hassle now to take it to find a mikveh, go to the ocean, whatever it is. It comes out to be something that's hard to do. So the Rama brings down that regardless, such a thing requires tefillah. It's brought down, סימן קכ, סעיף ח', אבל הראשון אסור להשתמש בו לצורכי סעודה, אפילו דרך ארעי בלא טבילה. You're not allowed to use it even בדרך ארעי. Even one time you're not allowed to use it without tefillah. This is something that's agreed, mostly according to all. There is one Rishon that they bring down that argue, but that is the halacha. So now that is when you're dealing with something that is made to use regularly. But what happens if you want to use something that was made for temporary use, as a disposable, which means it's meant to be used one time? So over here, the question comes in various forms. On a keli, for instance, that you want to use one time, such as those trays, aluminums. Secondly, what will be the din if you want to use it more than one time? It's a disposable, but many people use it few times. Why should you use it one time if you can wash it and reuse it for 2, 3, 4 times? Do you have to be tovel such a thing? And thirdly, without the aspect of something that's disposable, what's the din of aluminum? Does it require tvila or it doesn't require tvila? So let's see. We'll see also what's the minhag and what is the halacha. So many of the poskim learn that aluminum trays that are disposable, not lav dafka aluminum, anything that's disposable, use it for 1, 2 times, you don't need tevila. Where do they bring it from? A Rambam. The Rambam brings down such a lashon shofar, keren. They used to use keren. Anything that was, the Rambam says, anything that you use, such as keren, a horn, that you'll take, and you use that to eat from it or drink from it. It seems like they use the horn as something to drink from. You put some liquid in there, you drink, and you throw it out. The Rambam says you throw it out. Such a thing doesn't require tevila. It's brought down in various poskim. This is the Rambam Ilchot Kelim Perek Hey, Halacha Zayin, קרן שהוא משתמש בה ומשליכה, אינה מקבלת טומאה. Over there we're dealing with דיני טומאה. What's the din of טומאה? In order for something to become tameh, it has to be considered a keli, a utensil. If you have something that you can't call it a keli, it's not mekabel tuma. And that is halacha that has a lot of ashlachot. It goes to various things, and it also comes down to our halacha over here. The Rambam teaches us anything that's temporary, anything that's disposable, anything that you don't mean to use over and over again for a long time and to keep as something temporary, such a thing would be considered not a keli, not a utensil. And therefore, anything that's not a keli doesn't require tevila, because the very first thing you need is to call it a keli, to call it a utensil. Something that's not a utensil doesn't even start. It only starts having a requirement if it is a keli.
He didn't clear here. He just increased it with that something you're eating with. But there, even if it's you're using it after someone who's tameh is coming to mishtamesh or however the tumah is going to come on it, it's something from outside. This is something that's klisi oda, that's bought from the goy. It's a whole different thing. still with Tuman Tahara.
So you want to say there's two dinim, tzvei dinim, one din kli seuda and one din kli for tum'ah. No, it's a chidush to be mechalek like that. But let's say there is such a chiluk, then you have a different din that comes around. And that is what you said before. Tuma, tara. Do we compare tvilat kelim to dinei tuma vetara? And that is something that you find in all the dinim of electricity. When it comes to din of electricity, any electric device that you buy, you need to take to the mikveh. The problem is many things you can't take to the mikveh because you'll ruin them. You put them in the water, you might ruin them. What they do today is they take them, they put them in the water, and they wait for it to dry for a few days. Usually it doesn't get ruined, but sometimes it can get ruined, especially if it's made with a digital device, that definitely gets ruined in the water, and therefore you can't immerse it in the water. That's, for instance, a din by a Keurig machine. If you take a Keurig machine in the water, you'll destroy it. So you need to know what's the in and outs in such a thing. But concerning our electric devices, there is a Shev Yaakov, a chidush that he says that since there's an outlet that you have to attach the electric device to, therefore it's considered mechubar lakarka, and anything that's mechubar lakarka, it's connected to the ground, is not mekabel tum'ah. Because anything that's connected to the ground, you have something that's attached to the ground, attached to the wall, which is attached to the ground, such a thing is not mekabel tum'ah. That's a din by dinei tum'ah v'tahara, anything that's mechubar lakarka. Therefore, an electric keli that's mechubar lakarka, because that's the way you use it. Only if it's mechubar lakarka, you have to attach it to the outlet. Such a thing would not be mekabel tum'ah. This is what comes out from the Shev Yaakov. He doesn't talk about electricity. I don't even think they had electricity in his time. But he's mechadesh that it has to have dinei tum'ah v'tahara, as it is in Masechet Kelim, as the Rambam brings down in the Halachot. So therefore over here, it would be the same. That's how the poskim later on wanna rely on this Shev Yaakov. If you rely on this Shev Yaakov, the truth is that the poskim argue on the Shev Yaakov. They don't agree with the Shev Yaakov. They're almost entirely the poskim hold that electric devices need tevilah, just like any other thing. Even more so, the Gidulei Tahara argues on the Shev Yaakov and holds that anything that's mekabel tumah v'tahara has nothing to do with our tvilat kelim, because the tvilah of kelim is not because of tumah v'tahara, but it's totally something else. It's not tumah v'tahara, but rather, as the Bet Yosef explained, the Taz brings it down in the beginning over here, it's tum'at hagoim, which means the goyim also have a certain tumah that they have, and that goes on the utensil, on the keli, and when you take it to the mikveh, that keli goes out. The tum'ah from the keli goes out. It's pokea, it comes out, and the kedusha of the Israel comes into the keli, and that's it.
It has to do with ownership. Somehow he acquired it and never touched it also.
True, and that's enough that he acquired it without touching it or anything like that. That's enough for his tum'ah to lay on the keli.
אז גם את הכיור בן אדם שצריך להתייעד.
זה ממש מכובד.
לא, זה ודאי, זה דבר שהוא לא, כלי,
זה כלי סעודה?
כיור. לא, זה צריך להיות כלי סעודה, זה דבר שהוא לא מחובר, זה דבר שלגמרי מחובר לקרקע, זה לא כלי בכלל, זה לא נחשב כלי. Yeah, that's a berez in a barrel, not a faucet that we have today. The faucet that we have today definitely doesn't require the Rambam. The Ben Ish Chai brings down the barza, which is what the Gemara and the Halacha brings in Shin Yudaled in Ilchot Shabbat. That is a certain device that was attached to the barrel, to the chavit. Over there, you had like a barza. You had such a faucet, a small faucet that you would
temporary vessels, why can't we just say simply it's not like Lemidyan? Definitely it's not like Lemidyan. Everything we learned from Lemidyan. Lemidyan was not temporary. Everything they took from Lemidyan, nobody ever used temporary vessels, definitely metal vessels. And also, al ash, a lot of this kalim not made to be used on the fire regularly.
Well, we're talking about metals. We're talking about aluminum that you use on a fire.
Definitely, it's not like Lemidyan. Lemidyan was permanent, was not temporary vessels.
That is what the poskim want to know. They want to know how far do you take that. So do you learn tuma v'tahara in such an aspect, just like there was back then, or you say that just like Lemidyan didn't have nothing to do with tuma v'tahara, just tumat goyim, you say that that's sufficient. Do you say that? So that's the question. Do you say that it needs to be permanent like the Lemidyan, or no? It has to be a keli. That's sufficient because we don't need to learn that far. We don't need to be identical everything over there. It's a keli. It's a kli seuda. Kli seuda. That is the requirement over here. It's a kli seuda. Lichora, it's you have to go to that Rambam and learn. And many argue on that. But first of all, let's see. This is what the Rav Moshe brings down l'halacha. This is how, by the way, the Or Letzion in Chelek Hey, he brings like that as well. From this same Rambam, he brings l'halacha. This is how the Minchat Yitzchak brings down l'halacha. And this is how many poskim hold l'halacha. Those that want to say that it doesn't require tevilah because it's temporary. It's something that's disposable. It's not usually used on a regular basis. Anything that's disposable, you throw out. In Igrot Moshe, he brings down another idea. He says that even if you want to use it more than one time, if you want to use it more than one time and you want to use it multiple times, then maybe it's not anymore a disposable. Over here, Lichora, it goes according to the maker, the company that made it, the person, the craftsman that made it. He's the one that makes it in order for it to be such that's disposable. So that there's no chalot tum'ah if we go with tum'ah on that thing, and no chalot keli. That's definitely, it doesn't have a keli name to it. That's what the Rambam tells us. That's definitely, it's either because it doesn't have a shem keli, or it's because it doesn't have tum'ah on such a thing. If you go with the Shev Yaakov, that it requires tum'ah. But what about if you want to use it multiple times? So we said that over here already you have some poskim that would be more machmir. Comes Rav Moshe and says a different understanding. He says, no, it's nothing to do with how many times you want to use it. As long as it's disposable, it doesn't require tevilah. It's not. Why not? Because he learns from what it says in Ilchot Kelim in the Rambam. In Perek Bet, he says, Kelim asuim milefet vedlat teorim. You have keli, you have something that you made out, a utensil that you made out of a turnip, or you took a dlat. What's a dlat? A pumpkin. You cut it up and you made it into a keli. Such a thing, he says, it's tahor. Why? Says the Rambam, לפי שאי אפשר שיעמדו אלא לזמן מועט. It doesn't last too long. And since it's not there to last for a long time, it's not mekabel tuma, and it's tahor, and therefore it's not even, it doesn't, why it's not mekabel tuma? Because it's not a keli. It's not a keli, that's it. So Rav Moshe learns from here that same would be by such utensils. That even if you want to use it again and again, still it would not be considered mekabel tuma, it's not be considered keli, because eventually it's not made to last for a very long time. You throw it out, and such a thing is not considered a keli, it's not mekabel tuma. Good? Now, those that argue on that, obviously. But let's see the reasoning. Says the Mishnah Halachot, Rav Menashe Klein, Zatzal. He comes to argue on all points. He holds that all temporary utensils, all disposables require tevilah. And same thing would hold many others, including Chacham Ovadia. He brings down in Chazon Ovadia Chelek Bet in Shabbat that it requires tevilah, and he proves to that from the fact that kli that's made for temporary use as a disposable, you could use for instance, for kiddush. You're allowed to take such a keli and make kiddush with such a thing. After he proves that you can make, not everybody holds that way. For instance, Rav Moshe said, no, you need to have a kli chashuv. It's not a kli chashuv. He learns that from the Gemara in Brachot that says that you need to have there's certain dinim to a keli. So you have to have a keli that holds. Over here, such a keli is not a kli chashuv. But Chacham Ovadia argues and he brings a list of poskim that say that if you use such a temporary keli, it's permitted. So there are some that want to be choshesh for a Moshe. So what do? If they have, let's say, a plastic cup, they put two of them. It's like a little bit, if it's not a kli chashuv, you can put two of them, it's still not a kli chashuv. But,
It's still not true.
so Chacham Ovadia proves from here that you see that it is a keli. Since it is a keli, you're allowed to use it also for, it has a shem keli. Since it's a keli that you're allowed to use it for kiddush, therefore you have to be tovel such a thing as well. You see that something that's disposable, still considered a keli, still has a shem keli, you have to take it to the mikveh and be tovel. Others want to say, well, plastic doesn't require tvila regardless because of the material. It needs to be something that's metal or glass. Really? That's a chidush nifla, because he wrote this whole teshuvah in Chazon Ovadia. Now, the others want to prove from the fact that you use it for netilat yadayim. Person that wakes up in the morning, you need to do netilat yadayim, you have to use kli for it, you have to use a utensil. What kind of utensil would you use? It has to have a shem keli, you can't use anything. You can't take, like, let's say, you have a box made out of just a regular box, it's a paper, and be notel yadayim with such a thing. You have to have something that holds the water and has a shem keli. So can you use plastic cup if you don't have your natla, your regular natla? The answer is the majority of the poskim would permit such a thing. Lechatchila, don't use such a thing because there are those that are machmir. But using such a thing is fine because it has a shem keli. If it has a shem keli, concerning this also it should have a shem keli and you'll be able to use it. Now, to understand those that argue, how do they argue also? Where do they come from? We said over here we brought a Rambam. Two Rambams we mentioned up to now, and it's very clear in the Rambam because the Rambam says that such a keren, for instance, that we read before, shehu mishtamesh ba umashlicha, you take the horn, you use it, and then you throw it out after use, and mekabelet tumah. And the rule again by Ilchot Tum'ah is that it's mekabel tumah because it's not a keli. If it's a keli, it would be mekabel tumah. Says Rabbi Menashe Klein that it's a misunderstanding over here because the keli itself was not made to become a keli. As soon as you cut off the horn from the animal, you could use it. Now, there are horns that you have to drill into it. That's the way we make a shofar. You have to drill out. You have to take the inside out, the zachrut as we call it, and form it into a shofar. But just to use the outside like this, just with a little bit of the inner of the horn, that you can use right away. And therefore, since you didn't make it into a keli, then it's a shvach keli. It's not a very good keli. It's something that's weak. It's a weak keli. So therefore, such a thing, we can easily consider it not a keli if it's made to throw out. But let's say you have such a thing that you went ahead and formed it specially to use as a utensil. For instance, those aluminum trays. You want to have that aluminum tray. It wasn't created like that. That's not how it was created. That's not how it was born. You took metals, you took the aluminum, and you started playing around with it, and you made it into a form of what it is. And therefore, such a thing definitely has a shem keli. You definitely did it for using it as a tray. Use something like that should definitely have a din of a keli. That's his argument. What about idlat? What about idlat? We said by idlat that the reason to pater, says Rab Moshe, is because it doesn't last. So you see that anything that doesn't last doesn't have a shem keli. That's what Rab Moshe says. Says Rabbi Menashe Klein that it's also not a good raya from this Rambam. Why not? Because idlat, the turnip and the pumpkin, wouldn't last because eventually they get spoiled. Even if you don't touch it, it would again eventually get spoiled. Which means it's not meant to stay, unlike the aluminum tray or anything else that you make for that is disposable. If you don't touch it, you just made it. If you buy from the store, you go to the store from supermarket and you buy yourself a tray, you put it in your closet, and you don't touch it, it stays there. Nothing happens to it. You can stay for a very, very long time. Nobody touches it. Doesn't get. You only throw it out after you use it, not because it's not a keli anymore, because it got dirty and it's a cheap thing. And today, time and age, everything is disposable. You throw it out. You buy a new one. That's the way it is. So such a thing is not compared in any way to the dlat.
דעת אתה יכול להלבש אותה, היא מתייבשת בצורה נכונה, נהיה חזקה. זה גם יכול לעמוד, זה פה נהיה כמו...
אבל, yes, but the whole idea of the Rambam is because...
זה קשה כמו עץ נהיה.
Yeah, but again, the Rambam doesn't say what you're saying. The Rambam says that the reason you're allowed to use it, לפי שאי אפשר שיעמדו אלא לזמן מועט. So your argument is right now on the Rambam. Let's take the Rambam on the face value, whatever he says. You have a problem with the Rambam? That's not. Right now we're dealing with a Moshe's Raya from the Rambam. You go into the source. You're saying the Rambam, I have a question on the Rambam. Okay, we'll deal with the Rambam.
Bring the Rambam b'chlal, because the Rambam says that's the inyan to mavet harav, but the inyan to vidat keri. Most of the Aharonim.
Oh, so that is
Rabbanan.
that is what he wanted to claim in the beginning, and the answer we said is that there's two things. First of all, we said again that over here, what the Rambam tells me, it's not mekabel tuma. He means to say that it's not a keli. Because the base for ilchot tuma v'tahara is that when you have a keli, it's mekabel tuma. When you don't have a keli, it doesn't have a shem keli, it's not mekabel tuma. That's for instance how they bring also legabe pads for women, that it's not mekabel tuma, even though it's made maybe from material that normally is mekabel tuma. It's not made from paper. Today they make them from material. But since the Rambam says over here that anything that's meant to throw away, even though it is a material, that could be mekabel tuma, but since it's made to throw away, to learn from here that it is permitted and it's not mekabel tuma, right? Therefore, having a stain of such a thing would be permitted. Okay? So now, when we're dealing with Rav Moshe says Rav Menashe Klein, it's not compared to the din we dealt before from the Rambam, because such aluminum trays would last. You keep them, it would last. That's the way Rav Menashe Klein wants to learn. Now, this is when we're dealing with something that is temporary. And even if you want to say that you want to use it over and over again, would it have a Shem Keli? We said over here that this would fall into that machloket. Would using it overly again and again would have a din keli or wouldn't have din keli. Nafka mina for tevila, and it's a very it's something that comes to play very much. What does Rav Eliashiv say? Rav Eliashiv says an interesting thing. He says that when you have aluminum tray, you have a very easy way to get out from the whole question. What is it? Oh, you take, let's say, the sides of the tray and you smash them and you flatten it a little bit. Once you flatten it, in a way, you lost the name Keli from it, and then you put it back together, it's like Nigmar al Yedei Israel. Let me tell you what the Or Letzion says. Or Letzion, we said before, he holds that such a thing is not mekabel tuma, and therefore you're allowed to use it, but only one time. He argues on Rav Moshe that you can use it again and again. You can use it one time, not more than one time. But let's say you want to use it the second time, what happens then? He says, then, since right now it was a keli that was meant to use only one time, the fact that you're using it the second time and the third time, you yourself considering it into a keli. And therefore it's considered like Nikmar al Yedei Israel. It's considered his keli that Nikmar al Yedei Israel. He says that same idea in Chelek Aleph as well. This is what I told you in Chelek Hey. In Yored De'ah. In Chelek Aleph also he brings such a thing, that whenever you have a container, let's say, of coffee, a glass container of coffee, such a thing requires tevilah. The poskim almost all agree that it doesn't require tevilah. You don't need like to spill out the coffee, go to the mikveh, dip it, and then put the coffee back in it. Why not? So there's various answers to this question. I saw in Shulchan Aruch from Rav, there's a rabbi in Israel, Shabeshet something, I forgot the name. He writes from Chacham Ovadia that the reason is because I don't mean to acquire, when I buy such a coffee, I don't mean to acquire the glass. Why? Because if I acquire the glass, I'll be right away obligated to take it to the mikveh. So there is such a din that's brought down already in the poskim, in the early poskim. The Lechem Mishnah brings such a thing, that whenever you don't want to acquire something, even though you don't have that in mind, but it's something you don't want to do. If you knew, you wouldn't want to acquire such a thing. You could actively think that I'm buying the coffee without the glass, and then you're not koneh the glass. You don't have to. Nobody forces you to acquire the glass. You could be koneh whatever you want. I want to be koneh the coffee without the glass. So over here, even if you didn't think of it, we assume that is what you want to do, and therefore you're not koneh the glass. Why you don't want to be koneh the glass? Because if you koneh the glass, you'll be required to go and take it to the mikveh. Same thing he says about buying a can of Coke, for instance, a can of soda. The can itself requires tevilah. If you hold, like what Chacham Ovadia just told us, if you hold like those that hold that whenever you have a temporary keli for a disposable, you need to take it to the mikveh. So therefore, over here wouldn't be any different when you buy such a can of soda. You need to take it to the mikveh. Why? What's the reason we don't take it to the mikveh? According to that idea, the reason is, since I don't mean to acquire the can itself, I don't want to acquire. I want to just get the Coke within it. It's better if a person, according to them, would think about this actively.
I mean, over there, you're better. You're making
I think the rabbi is called Shashua, Rabbi Shashua. כבודו מכיר, Rabbi Shashua, הרב שעשוע, כתב שולחן ערוך, תלמיד של חכם עובדיה. Yeah.
Coffee, it's also not edible. As
Shabbat
is
is different.
to
Oh yeah,
it's
Shabbat, yeah.
execution shechita. So maybe that's another
Yeah,
because
Shabbat is
some people also use the glass after, and I definitely never.
So that's where I'm getting to. That says Leor LeTzion, if you want to use the afterwards, the poskim, most of the poskim hold, the reason you don't need to take the glass to the mikveh is because it's not considered a keli, it's considered a container. Meanwhile, it's somewhere to hold the coffee. It's not considered keli. Is something you use in and out. Something you just store in it. It's a storage thing. It's a container that you store things in it. But if you want to refill it after it's finished, then you have to run and take it to the mikveh. Says the Or LeTzion in Chelek Aleph, you don't need to take it to the mikveh. Why not? Because since you are the one making it into a keli, up to now it wasn't a keli, it was a container, it was a storage. Now you making it into a keli, it's considered nigmar bidei Israel, it's considered like your keli, Israel keli, doesn't require tevilah. Same thing it says over here with aluminum. Aluminum, you can use it only one time. You can't use it more than one time because it's a temporary keli. If you use it more than once, so then it's considered nigmar al yedei Israel. It's not meant to use more than once. It's meant, the company made it so you can use it one time. You bake your chicken in it. You're done, you throw it in the garbage. It's dirty. Who washes such trays? But if you are such person that washes and uses it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, you are making it into a keli. It's nigmar al yedei Israel. That's the understanding of the Or LeTzion. He's not the only one that says it, but he says it openly. It's he brings such a chidush down. Good? Very interesting. Ken Kvod Harav.
So all the Hasidim don't have anything. They don't buy Coke. They hold like Moshe Klein, no? Hasidim, they're very mahmir.
אפשר להגיד מהרמב"ם, שורה תלת, או כל דבר אחר.
כן?
דווקא. הוא לא דיבר על מתכות.
כן? אז עכשיו, now we come into the question, is aluminum, אז אני עונה לך, אני עונה לכבודו.
דווקא כן, אבל אם תקח משהו שהוא דומה למה שהפסוק אמר, גם בפעם אחת...
מה שכבודו אומר זה לא יכול להיות נכון, כי הוא מדבר לי על ענייני טומאה וטהרה, זה לא קשור לכלי מתכות. מתכות זה דינים בטבילת כלים. אנחנו עכשיו לא דנים בטבילת כלים. הרמב"ם לא דן בטבילת כלים, הרמב"ם דן בענייני טומאה וטהרה, זה לא משנה לרמב"ם אם יש לך מתכת או יש לך דלעת, בשבילו זה אותו דבר. שניהם מקבל טומאה, הסיבה שדלעת לא מקבל טומאה זה מכיוון שזה לא מחזיק מעמד, וכנ"ל יהיה בכלי מתכת שלא מחזיק מעמד. אבל זה דינים בטומאה וטהרה שלא קשור כלל לטבילת כלים. כן.
הסברה הזאת קצת בעיה מאחד שקנה מגוי סכין בשביל להשתמש בה רק בשביל לחתוך קלפים, ואחרי זה הוא השאיל אותו למישהו שרוצה
כן.
להשתמש בו. אז אפילו שעכשיו, או שעכשיו רוצה להשתמש בזה הרי, לא אומרים שבגלל שעכשיו הוא החליט לעשות את זה.
When a person buys a knife, the knife itself is not a temporary keli, it's not a disposable. זה לא משנה מה הכוונה שלך, לא, זה משנה אם אתה רוצה לא להשתמש בהם לכלי מאכל, זה כן, אבל אם אתה רוצה לזרוק את זה מיד אחרי זה, זה לא יעזור לך, זה ככה הקדמנו את השיעור שלנו. No, when you buy a knife, it's a kli ma'achal, finished, finito. It's only when we say that you bought something that is not a keli. But you don't have to dip it because you're not using it for kli ma'achal. If you're buying a kli ma'achal and you want to use it to scratch your walls, that doesn't require. It's only when you want to, it's because it's connected to the food. Since your food, that's how the Rishonim explain. Since the food is something that has to be b'kedusha, of tahara, and so on and so forth, so therefore the kelim in it would be, the kelim that hold it should be the same. Let's see how it says in Chesed La'alafim. כל זמן שאינו מטבילו טומאתו עליו ודבק באוכל אשר הוא אוכל ונפש אשר הוא חובל.
אז למה אם הוא שואל כלי מגוי, גם יש לזה עוד יותר טומאה? למה זה, if it's automatically goes... זה חסד לאלפים גם בכלל קדושת האכילה, שיזהר בטבילת כלי הסעודה כדינם וכהלכתם. It has to do with food. Food, since a person eats, it needs to be בקדושה, בטהרה, not with the tumah of the goyim. There's a lot of halachot that has to do, with the food that don't require somewhere else. The food has to be always something, food of a Jewish person has always super extra dinim of kashrut, קדושה, טהרה, ברכות לפני, ברכות אחרי, כל הדינים של הדברים האלה. לכאורה, בסכין של שחיטה, למה יש מחלוקת? זה צריך תפילה.
הסכין של שחיטה זה מחלוקת, זה לא, המחלוקת היא, האם, זה ודאי לאכילה, האם, לא, המחלוקת היא, שמע כבודו, המחלוקת היא, האם דבר שהוא לפני, סכין של שחיטה, let's just explain. You have a knife for shechting. The knife for shechting is not something that you shecht and you eat right away. אף על פי שנפש יפה תאכלנו, but normally people don't eat right away after you shecht. So therefore anything that's the step before, anything that's before eating, anything that's before the food is ready, doesn't require tevilah according to the simple understanding in the Shulchan Aruch. Those that argue, it's a machloket in the Gemara, the Bet Yosef explains. Those that argue, אז כבודו אני אמרתי שנפש יפה תאכלנו, but in כלים you go בתר רוב תשמישו, normally how people are using, and also רוב אנשים, how people, normally people, majority people, אני הבנתי שמותר, אז אני עונה לך, נכון? אז אני עניתי, אז אני עונה, אפשר לאכול את זה ככה, אבל אנשים, יש מציאות שאוכלים, אנחנו לא הולכים על פי מציאויות, אנחנו הולכים על פי majority of people eating. What majority? The majority of people, after they shecht the animal, they take the animal, they eat it the way it is. They take the kaved, they eat it the way it is. The answer is no. Nobody does it like that. Maybe you find one here, one there, but that's not the way it is. We go according to majority, and that is... So, אני אסביר לך מאיפה majority. בוא תשמע. בוא נסביר לך. אבל שמענו את הקושייה שלך, אז אתה חוזר על הקושייה, אתה עכשיו שואל מאיפה המג'רדי, אז אני אומר לך. כשהתורה אומרת לך שאתה צריך לטבול כלי סעודה, כלי סעודה זה לא אומר משהו שיש לך איזה מישהו אחד מתוך 1,000 או מתוך 10,000 שעושה בצורה כזו, זה לא הופך את זה לכלי סעודה. כלי סעודה זה דבר, אתה הולך עכשיו לסופרמרקט. You go to the hardware store, to the what do you call it, store, and you tell the person, I want to buy some utensils to eat. He's going to pull you out now, I don't know what, a whole axe, because some people take an axe and they chop with this their meat Instead, but there is somebody that does it. I can show you people that take the ox and eat. אני מבין, אנחנו מדברים על הכלים שצריכים, טבילה, שמה שחותך את האוכל, נכון? אז זה אני עונה לך עכשיו. מותר, אכן כן. אנחנו לא מדברים עכשיו על היתרים, אני כבר הקדמתי לפני שאתה הקשת, אני אמרתי שהסכין של שחיטה, נפש יפה תאכלנו, באמת אתה יכול לקחת את הסכין, שחטת עכשיו את הבהמה, אתה יכול לאכול אותו כמו שזה. אתה לא צריך, למה אתה מגיע איתי לכבד? עזוב אותך כבד, שחיטה, אנחנו מדברים על שחיטה. נפש יפה תאכלנו, מותר לך לקחת את הבשר אחרי ששחטת אותו ולאכול אותו as is, מה הדין? מותר, אז מה אתה מקשה לי עכשיו מכבד? למה אתה הולך לי עכשיו לכבד? אני אמרתי לך מראש נפש יפה תאכלנו, מה אתה עכשיו מביא לי כבד? אז אני עניתי, אז אני הקשתי, ואני עניתי גם כן, זאת אומרת, אני חסכתי לך את העבודה, אני ידעתי שאתה פה תתעורר, חסכתי לך את העבודה, אמרתי שזה לא הולך על פי 1 מ-1000 ו2 מרבבה, 1 בקם ירדוף 1000 ו100 רבבה, זה לא עובד בצורה כזאת, איך זה עובד? זה הולך על פי רוב אנשים. שאלת מאין אני מביא את היסוד המוזר הזה, אז אני עניתי גם על זה. שכשאנחנו דנים בכלי סעודה, כלי סעודה כשמו כנו, זה צריך להיות כלי סעודה. עכשיו אם יש לך אחד באפריקה שאוכל בצורה כזאת, זה לא עושה את הדבר הזה, כלי סעודה.
אי אפשר להגיד שהקנקן שמחזיק את הקפה, הזכוכית שמחזיקה את הקפה, יש להגיד כמו סכין של שחיטה, כי לא אוכלים את הקפה ישר.
נכון? אפשר. כן, היה אפשר להגיד את זה, אבל הקפה נחשב מוכן לאכילה. כיוון ש this is a question that the poskim bring down. For instance, let's take you, רב תידר loves to go כל התורה כולה. Let's take you to דיני משלוח מנות. Can you give coffee as משלוח מנות? So the poskim say that you could. Why? It's not ready to eat, and one of the requirements it needs to be ready to eat because it's instant. You just pour water, it's there. Something that you just put water, it's considered ready to eat. It's considered food. לא, בשר צריך עבודה. זה כי אתה לא יודע איך מבשלים בשר, והבשר זה לא זורקים על האש. טוב. Says Rav Belsky, זצ"ל. Says Rav Belsky, זצ"ל. Aluminum, forget about right now, temporary, disposable, not disposable. Aluminum is not metal. And he says like this, he says 3 things. Listen to this, very beautiful. First of all, he says that the Torah itself says exactly what needs to be taken to the mikveh. There's a whole list in the Torah. Ach et hazav, 6 different metals. Ach et hazav, ve'et hakesef, et hanechoshet, et habarzel, et habedil, ve'et haoferet. Haoferet? Dehainu, only those, because it's like shesh ktuvim abaim ke'echad. In other words, if the Torah wants to tell me all metals, the Torah tells me one thing, that's the rule in the Torah. Whenever the Torah says one thing, we learn binyanav, a model. This is what it is. You learn that as a model to everything else. When the Torah says 2 things, why does 2 things? The 2 things in order that you can't learn other things from them. It's only those and nothing else. That's a rule consistently. Even more so if you have 6 things. The Torah wants to tell you those and nothing else.
So it's metal, but it's not metal that is asur. No, it's not metal.
1 minute. So according to this understanding, it could be metal, but it's not part of the 6 different metals that the Torah requires you tevilah, and therefore it doesn't need tevilah. That's one thing.
Iron.
Huh?
Computer. You say that in English.
It's not liquid, it's steel.
No, Barzel's iron, I'm sorry.
Second thing, says Rav Belsky, that the chemists agree, don't listen. The chemists agree that the making of those 6 elements are very different than the making of the aluminum. It's not made the same way. It has different elements. And because of that, it's closer to earth than to metal. and therefore it's not considered metal. He brings from Rav Chaim Ibrisk that he considered aluminum as earth, closer to sand, to earth, than to a metal. So according to that, it doesn't require tevila. So he says that's only a sniff. In other words, if you have a metal keli that's not disposable, you bought aluminum keli that's not disposable, it's meant to use for a long time, over and over again, so then you should take it to the mikveh without beracha because of the reasons we say. But if it's something temporary use as such, you don't need to take it to the mikveh at all. says, הכל דחוק. אנחנו דוחקים. ודאי, זה כל השיעור פה דחוק. לא, זה חכמים, מדרבנן, אנחנו עכשיו מדברים על דאורייתא. אבל בוא תשמע, כן, בוא תשמע. אומר, נשמע כבודו, אומר המנחת יצחק, אנחנו לא מעניין אותנו, מותר, אסור, הלכות, הכל טוב ויפה, זה כן מעניין, לא שזה לא מעניין. אבל בסוף, שורה האחרונה, איך פוסקים הלכה? If a person asks you, okay, you got me very confused, this one says מותר, this one says אסור, אלו מימינים, אלו מסמילים, כי פלא ממך דבר בין דם לדם, בין דין לדין, דברי ריבות בשעריך. What do you do? The rule is that פוק חזי, מה הדבר? You go see what's the minhag, what people do. אם לא נביאים, בני נביאים הם. Go see what people do. Leave me alone. I don't know, you got me, give me a headache now. This says mutar, this says asur, too complicated. What do people do? It's definitely, you'll agree with me, that majority of the people, almost the large, ruba, don't take such things to the mikveh. You buy it from the supermarket, you take it home. Who goes to the mikveh? You ever saw a person comes to the mikveh with metal strays?
It comes ready already.
It comes?
Ready.
Yeah, for those they have to do with hashgacha. For those that want to solve the problem, you're right. But people, but when you go to a supermarket and you see without hashgacha, so what? You go into a different supermarket to look for trays with hashgacha. You buy it. Your wife told you to buy 5x3, 2x1. I don't know the sizes, whatever it is. It's like a computer. You go this, goodbye. How many you need? Leave me alone, let me go back to my learning, right? You go see, it doesn't have hashgacha, I'm running now to the mikveh, look for parking for half an hour, and then get a ticket, and come back home with tray wet from the mikveh, now you have to wash it. The whole idea of buying the trays in order not to wash it, now you have to wash it from the water of the mikveh. So, the minhag is definitely such that people don't take it to the mikveh. So therefore, that's what Minchas Yitzchak says, Chen amad davar. Says on Menashe Klein, Chen amad davar. What does that mean, Chen amad davar? When do you say you follow the minhag? When there's a minhag kadmon, based on the poskim. The Chida brings down that any minhag that is not based on the poskim, in other words, minhag can start from Amonab. The minhag was that they went to the rabbi. That's how minhag starts. The rabbi told them to do a certain way. And they started doing that way, and it was mitpashet. Now, they don't remember who said and what's the reasoning. But that's how the minhag was mitpashet. That's a yesod in minhagim. Otherwise, minhag is lashon, is otiyot, Jehannam. So, therefore, such a minhag, that is the correct minhag. Says Rav Menashe Klein, over here, there's no minhag kadmon. Now we are discussing for the first time, mutar, asur, requires tevila, doesn't require tevila. We're saying amad davar. If people started doing a certain way, we are right now sitting down and discussing. It comes in front of our table, shulchan melachim man malche rabanan. So we are going to decide, mutar or asur. There's no minhag. How could you claim minhag? Very good claim, right? The only problem is that this tshuva from Rav Menashe Klein was written in Tafshin Lamed Zayin, which means almost 50 years ago. Tafshin Lamed Gimel, actually. 50 years ago. Within 50 years, a minhag definitely could be formed already. So they discussed, they argued, they thought about it, they wrote about it, and many inks were spilled, הרבה קולמוסים נשברו, הרבה דיו נשפך since then. And now there's definitely a minhag that's formed, and that minhag definitely has value. What is the minhag today? The minhag today, it's no question about it that people don't take things to the mikveh. And therefore, that should be the minhag. But if a person wants to be machmir, he should do what Rav Elyashiv says and smash a little bit the tray. If not easy, but if a person wants to be machmir, how does it work? Smashing the tray. Says Rav Elyashiv Shita. The poskim agree with that, but I'm saying it brings down that whenever you have a kli, you bought yourself a Keurig machine. A Keurig machine needs tevila. There are those that are lenient. But let's say with the shitot, majority of the shitot hold it needs tevila. How are you going to take it to the mikveh? You can't take it to the mikveh. There are other ways that you can go around it. But one way that you could do, says Rav Elyashiv, is that you could dismantle it to the point that you'll need a professional to put it together. You let a professional Jew, put it together, an electrician, put it together, and then it doesn't require tevilah because nigmar al yedei Israel. So you bought, like, let's say, this Keurig machine. If you're just taking off some pieces that anybody knows how to do it, maaseh idiot, so then it's not considered nigmar b'yedei Israel because it's meant to be taken and put, like, if, for instance, the pieces that each person, each regular hediot, each normal person knows how to put it together, that's not considered nigmar al yedei Israel. But if, let's say, you open the screws under and you took out the wire that connects to the outlet and you played around with it, and now you want to put it together, you wouldn't know how to put it together. So therefore you call your electrician. Can you put it together for me? Yes. Then once he puts it together, it's nigmar al yedei Israel. That is the way you deal with things that with electric things, electric devices, electric things, in order to be able to use it. It's called nigmar al yedei Israel. There's also other ways to use it, right? There's for instance, those that sell it to a goy. If you sell it to a goy and you ask the goy that you want to use it, that's the best possible way. Not the best possible way. There's machloket over it, whether you're allowed to keep on using it, because Mishnah Berurah seems to say, the Shach brings like that you can only use it for 30 days, not more than that. In Shin Kaf Gimel, it brings this down. In Ilchot Shabbat, the Shach brings this down as well, that whenever, Taz also, that whenever you use something for 30 days, nira keshelo already. It doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the goy. You sold it to the goy. You went to Tony, you told him, can you buy this thing for me? Sure. Here's $1 for it. He gives you $1 for it. You give him the $1 first, so he doesn't lose money. Here's $1. You buy with this $1. Now the $1 is yours. He gives you back the $1. The Keurig machine is yours. And can you mind if I use it? He's a good friend of yours, so he knows you. No problem. Use it. You take it home and you use it. After 30 days, nira keshelo. Whenever it's nira keshelo, the poskim say that now there's certain requirements that come along with it. That's where you need to put a mezuzah and a bait tzachur. That because it's nira keshelo. That's why you need to put tzitzit on talit sheula. Why? Nira keshelo. The Magen Avraham brings down. So same thing would be here, that you have a keli that you used it for 30 days. Nira keshelo. But some poskim say that it's not required. Aruch HaShulchan. Many poskim bring like that, not required. Ben Ish Chai. Once you bought it from the goy, you can use it. Fine, good. That is one way to be able to use such things. But according to the way Rav Elyashiv says, it's beautiful. You just dismantle it, all good. But how does it work with the tray? Anybody can flatten the tray and put it together. How does it work? So says Rav Elyashiv. This is brought down in Ashraish. Says Rav Elyashiv, but over here, since it's a weak keli, it's a shvach keli, as we explained before. It's not a real utensil, and there's a lot of tzdadim to be mekel, as we said before. So therefore, it's also enough to do a tikkun kal. This idea is not his chidushim. This is brought down already in the Rishonim. Such ideas. For instance, the Ran says that a person does bitul for his chametz on Pesach. Says the Ran, why do you need to make, in the beginning of Pesachim, why do you need to make bitul? The chametz is not yours. שני דברים אינם ברשותו של אדם, ועשה התורה כאילו הם ברשותו של אדם. What are they? בור ברשות הרבים. You dig a pit. It's not yours, you dig a pit on Ocean Parkway. So now you acquired a land in Ocean Parkway, that would be wonderful. You become a millionaire instantly. The answer is no, it's not yours. It's like כשלא, only for the chiyuvim. Somebody falls in it. You can't start claiming it's yours. You don't get a deed for it. But if somebody gets damaged, you are the one obligated. And sheni, chametz, משש שעות ולמעלה, chametz בפסח, is considered yours. Considered yours. What do you mean considered yours? How is it considered yours? Really, it's not yours. Why is it not yours? Because once Pesach hits, and actually from the 4th hour of the day before Erev Pesach, it's not yours anymore because it becomes, whenever it becomes Asur B'Hana, it's the end of the time that it becomes Asur B'Hana, then anything that's Asur B'Hana, you don't have rights to it. You don't have Ba'alut on it. It's not yours. The Torah puts it back in your possession only for one thing, to be mitchayev, bebal yira'eh uval yimatzeh. So over here, when the Torah says that it's yours, the Torah pushes it into your possession. When you are, when you have chametz on Pesach, you could easily acquire it back because of the reason that you pushed it away. You could easily push it away because the Torah puts it in your possession in an easy way. So therefore also you can get rid of it very easily by doing bitul in such a fashion, in such a way. So we see there are in the Rishonim such a concept that something that has a weak ba'alut, easily you could get rid of it. Something that has a din keli, but it's not as stark, it's not a strong din keli. It's like a weak din keli with a lot of dinim that you could easily take away from it. Over here also, we take away from that keli just by smashing it. It's that keli. That's the חידוש of רב אליהו. שאלות. שאלה ראשונה לכבוד הרב. אין שאלות. אם שאלות זה דבר טוב.
Someone asked the question once by a caterer. Instead of washing all the kelim afterwards, they have all these little dessert cups and things and all the creams and everything. They buy 1,000 pieces of little glass cups. Instead of having someone wash them afterwards, they throw them all out. So one guy wanted to go and take them with the brand new, the glass.
Right.
He wanted to take them. Wanted to know if he had to do them.
So again, so we said like this. Since it's a keli that's meant to, if it's such, that's not meant to be a disposable, to be thrown out.
They just buy it because it's cheaper for them to buy 10 cents a
But it's meant to wash and to reuse. So such a thing requires tevila. Although,
they're actually throwing it out.
לא, הוא מדבר על כלי מסעדה על הראשון. הראשון שזרק אותם, אפשר להתווכח אם הוא צריך טבילה או לא. פה יש מחלוקת גדולה, האם אנחנו מדמים את זה למה שהתז מביא, שזה כלי של מסחר. האם כלי סעודה זה כמו כלי של מסחר? זה לא פשוט בכלל. יש אומרים שכן, חכם עובדיה ככה מביא, הרבה אומרים שלא. אבל הוא רוצה, הבן אדם הזה לא טבל אותם, כי הוא הסתמך על זה שזה נחשב כאילו ככלי סחורה שהתז מביא. מה יהיה הדין אם הוא אחרי שהוא זרק אותם, בא אחד לקח אותם הביתה? עכשיו זה כבר לא כלי סחורה, הוא רוצה להשתמש בזה בביתו, אז אתה אומר שצריך טבילה. פה יש צד להגיד שאולי, כיוון שבאמת, זה לא, אבל היינו יכולים להתווכח, שכיוון שעד עכשיו הדבר הזה נעשה על מנת, אם זה נעשה על מנת לזרוק, זה לא נעשה על מנת לזרוק, אבל אם זה נעשה על מנת לזרוק, ברגע שאתה לוקח את זה, אז אתה, זה נקרא כמו שהאור לציון אומר, שכאילו נגמר על ידי ישראל.
כל מיני עוגות כאלה, בפנים, אז זה זורקים את זה, לא משרים.
רגע, אבל זה נקנה על ידי ישראל. נקנה על ידי ישראל זה רק את זה. עכשיו, מי שלוקח את זה מההשפעה, הוא לוקח את זה ממה שישראל קנה, אז לא צריך.
לא, אבל מה שאתה קונה, זה לא משנה אם שרה יקנו את זה. אם זה היה באיזשהו שלב בבעלות הגוי, אתה צריך טבילה. אז יש לזה טומאת הגוי שרובץ על זה, כמו שכתוב פה בתז, בתחילת ק"כ, הוא אומר כלי סעודה, טעם הטבילה כדי שיצאו מטומאתו של עובד כוכבים לקדושתו של ישראל. יש פה שני דינים בטבילה הזאת, זה משהו הפלא ופלא. דבר ראשון זה להפקיע את הטומאה שלו. יש טומאה עצומה של גוי. אנחנו לא מרגישים את זה, אבל שגוי יש לו אפילו כלי, זאת אומרת, הטומאה של הגוי היא כזאת עצומה, שאפילו יש השפעה על הכלים שלו, זה משהו מביא לרעיון.
זה התורה,
זה התורה אומרת, אתה אומר, זה התורה.
גזרה
התורה גזרה שיהיה טומאה על הגוי, אתה אומר, על הכלים של הגוי. ויש...
ואם זה עדיין בבעלות הגוי...
ויש דבר שני, כן, זה מה שאנחנו אומרים.
אז למה מותר לשאול מגוי? היה צריך להתאסור עוד יותר. אנחנו אומרים שיש טומאה של גוי, ואפילו
כן,
שאני
שאלה
קניתי את זה ממנו.
שאלה חזקה.
קניתי, אז עוד יותר טוב.
שאלה חזקה. אבל ייתכן, זהו, ייתכן שאתה חייב, אם אתה... ייתכן, אתה שואל טוב, התשובה היא שייתכן שזה הדבר השני הוא נצרך, שצריך שיכנס לקדושה של ישראל. דהיינו כך, אם אתה לא יכול להכניס את זה לקדושה של ישראל, אז כבר תשתמש בזה כבר כמו שזה.
אין, אז אל תגיד לי ספרות, לא, תגיד לי גזירת הכתוב, I have no problem with that. But once you put the ספרות